Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Aging Gracefully with Humor. And humor is so important because everything doesn't always go our way, whether we're aging or not. If we're still here, we're aging, of course. But we just have to find the positives, positive outlook and perspective. Joining me on this show is my co-host and friend, Kathy Fulton. Welcome.
Good morning.
Kathy, I'd love for you to share with our audience your background and why this topic is so important to you.
Well, I have a background in the fact that I started my own home care agency in 2014. And my mother had two strokes back to back, and I was trying to find care for her. And it was a very difficult process. So instead of just settling, I just decided I know what people need. And so I'm going to start my own home care agency so that uh, perhaps it would make the elderly, it would be an easier process for the elderly to actually age in place. And so that was many years ago, and here we are today.
Fantastic. And Kathy, can you tell us a little bit for people who are not familiar with home care, what kind of services are included?
So the typical services that are included in home care, it's pretty much what any elderly person would need are or is help with all the daily activities of living, which would include anything relative to hygiene, like bathing, toileting, um, dressing can be a real challenge. Meal preparation, medication reminders, doing or assisting with the laundry, keeping the house tidy. Although you shouldn't expect this to be a maid service by any stretch, because the focus always needs to remain on the client and their care. We can do errands, but for the most part, it's all the help and assistance with the daily activities of living.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's obviously something that is near and dear to all of us as we are aging. And the fact that
Right.
not only are you successful in this area, but you also have a very successful interior design business. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll bring out our guest.
Okay. Yeah. So 22 years ago, I started my interior design firm, and it's a full service interior design firm. So um, we can assist you with any project for the interior or the exterior as well. So that's what we do.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Our guest today is backstage. We're very happy that she's here. Her name is Trista Windows, and she's the Director of Driver Rehabilitation Services. And she's got quite an extensive background. Let's bring her out and have a chat and find out what she's up to. Hi. We're so happy that you're here and connected.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, I had to switch over to a different room.
Fantastic. Well, we can hear you loud and clear. You look great. Tell us a little bit about Driver Rehabilitation Center of Excellence and what you do there.
Yeah, absolutely. So our physical location, we are in the Northern Virginia area in the DC metro area. We are a full service facility. We offer driver evaluations and training. So for driver evaluations, we see people across the entire spectrum of driving, from new novice drivers all the way up through retiring from driving. Our background is most of us are occupational therapists, or myself, I'm an occupational therapy assistant, and we look at the entire comprehensive piece of everything that is involved with driving. Um, so we do a very extensive clinical um, evaluation first. So we will check vision, we'll check reaction time, we'll look at those cognitive components about how your brain is processing information that you're going to be receiving out on the road. And then we do a full behind the wheel evaluation, taking the client or individual out in a car and doing a standardized behind the wheel assessment, looking at all those basic components of driving, gas, brake, steering. Uh, it's not complex. We try to keep it as simple as possible to really look at someone's driving skills. And then on the other side of our business, we do have a shop where we can modify vehicles to add in any auto adaptive equipment if someone has a limitation, physical impairment that they need equipment to assist with their driving.
Thank you so much. And while we have you on Spotlight, could you share a little bit about your background with our audience
Yeah,
and why you're
absolutely.
passionate about this?
So I, oh my goodness, I always forget how many years I've been in the field. It's been too many. So I am an occupational therapy assistant. So I went to school at Allegheny College of Maryland in Cumberland, Maryland. Immediately out of school, I did work in school systems. So I worked with children with disabilities within the school systems that needed additional services. During that time, I fell into an opportunity to transition to the DC metro area, and I worked for, oh my, almost 10 years at it is now Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. At the time, I started at National Naval Medical Center at Bethesda, and I was working in inpatient acute care, mostly primarily with service members returning from combat and working with those combat injuries as an OT assistant. During that time, Walter Reed had a very robust driving rehab program run by an occupational therapist by the name of Tammy Phipps. I met her. We were under the same umbrella of the OT department. I personally was like, wow, that's crazy taking people out on the road and driving. I knew it fell under the OT umbrella, but not where my passion was at the time. I was enjoying inpatient. But my time there kind of came to an end. It was time for me to transition and find something different. In 2016, Tammy had transitioned out of working for Department of Defense and had opened her own private practice here in Northern Virginia so that she could still serve not only our veteran community, but people in the community as well that needed driver rehab. There's a huge need for it within the community. So Driver Rehabilitation Center of Excellence opened in 2016. I joined the team in 2018. And in 2020, I was able to obtain my it's a board certificate, certified driver rehab specialist. So it's a board exam. We have on staff, we have 4 occupational therapists, 2 OT assistants, and 3 of us are certified driver rehab specialists, and the rest will be obtaining theirs when they're able.
It's very exciting. Thanks for sharing all of that. I'm going to
Mhm.
turn it over to Kathy. I just wondered if you could share who your clients typically are.
Our
Sure.
clients,
Yes.
yes. So like I said, when we think of driving, we see people across the entire spectrum of driving. So we are seeing, and because we are occupational therapists, OT assistants by trade, we're looking at a more holistic approach when it comes to driving. So we will see young novice drivers who maybe have a learning disability or a physical impairment, and they want to maintain, staying on track with their peers, but they can't go to a typical driving school. They need something a little bit more robust. So we see a lot of young novice drivers. We will see experienced drivers who have maybe suffered some type of injury or loss or physical impairment that need to transition into driving with adaptive equipment, accessible vehicles, things of that nature. That's where we're going to see a lot of amputees, strokes, spinal cord injuries, some of those more progressive diseases like peripheral neuropathy, Parkinson's, things like that. And then we also see our aging community. So I would say the bulk of our clients are actually the people within our community that are the older adults, the aging community that either want to know for themselves or to appease a family member or the doctor and be evaluated and see where they're at with driving. And then we do have to make that recommendation of continue to drive, limit your driving environment, or look at what it would be to retire from driving.
Thanks so much for the work you're doing to help other people. That's really, really impressive. Kathy?
So, Trista, one thing that I'm not sure if you and I talked about this when I called you and said, hey, I was reading about you and this sounds really awesome. I didn't know that this existed. Um, but just as a refresher and not to take the stage away, but when my mom fell, um, she got a concussion, or one of the times that she fell, she suffered a concussion, and then she was put in the hospital. And then the her attending physician said to me, um, "Okay, your mom can no longer live alone, and by the way, she can no longer drive. So you need to tell her these things." And I said, "Oh no, no, that's what you get paid to do. And so you need to deliver that mail because I mean, it's to me, I'm thinking it's like the person that takes their dogs to the vet, they're the bad person, but the person that picks up the dog from the vet, they're the hero. And I'm like, I don't want that attached to me. So this is my question. How, I mean, like, how do you get people? I mean, is there a family fight? Do you hear about situations like what I just described all the time?
Yes, and we often joke, we have a different rate for our family counseling sessions. No, we've had full-blown, arguments within our facility. So, driving is such a gray area, it can be subjective and objective. We can obtain objective data, but everyone has an opinion on how their parent or their spouse is driving. My mother is 76. We are about to drive to North Carolina in a few weeks. She's not driving. She's still a good driver in her hometown, in her environment, but putting her on 95 South is not going to work. Um, but we can kind of be Switzerland in a way to help with these family dynamics. We are very fortunate here, and I think something that we do really well when we do have to have that blunt um, conversation of retirement from driving. We are lucky that we live in a very resource-rich area, and I know that not everywhere within the country has these resources available, but we have many businesses out there that provide transportation services, rides to doctor's appointments, things of that nature to help offset the family or the caregiver of that burden of getting that individual around. But yeah, I remember one time we had a client, um, family members, children were very concerned. There were several children. Each child had a different opinion on their mother driving. Mother came in, we evaluated, she actually did very well. Clinically, she did very well. We had objective scores to show cognitively this is where she's at. We did on the road assessment. She did very well. We actually continued on and recommended some additional behind the wheel time with her and the therapist in her own car to refamiliarize because she had stopped driving for a while until they kind of figured out she worked through some medical complications. So I did several hours in her car with her, in her neighborhood, in her environment, in kind of all those different scenarios and traffic situations, and I couldn't find anything wrong. And um, for what she wanted to do. And I'll tell you, everybody wants to go to the grocery store, they want to go to church, and they want to go to the bank. And if you can do those things safely in your environment, in the context of when you are driving, now if you're telling me you're driving at 2 a.m. to the grocery store, I might have a little bit of concern. But having a background in healthcare, in occupational therapy, and our field, everything we do is promote independence. We know that when you start taking that independence away, you're going to see a much quicker decline. We want people to be as independent as possible for as long as possible while maintaining safety for themselves, safety for the general public. But yeah, I can say that 2 of the children did not agree with us at all. There were loud voices, there was yelling, but at the end of the day, our focus is the client and what's best for the client. And, we all finally came to a resolution. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know how things transition, but at the time it was the right choice or the right recommendation, I should say.
Right. Well, I just remember when the news was delivered to my mom, um, to say that she was mad would be a compliment. And but then I began to like talk her through in terms of the reality of it. Because at the time she lived in a very small town, population maybe 10,000. And so her argument and her position was, look, I'm just going to drive to Walmart. I'm just going to drive to church, just like you said. And I said, but you can still have an accident on the way. You could still hit a school bus full of children. You could I mean, I went down the list of all the scary things, and I said, first of all, you don't want to do that. You don't want to hurt anyone just because you're trying to go on with your life. And I said, it's kind of like a drunk driver. It's like, okay, so I just want a glass or two of wine, but at the end of the day, it's kind of selfish because take an Uber, take a Lyft. I mean, there are other ways around this. Back then, there wasn't an Uber and there wasn't a Lyft, and particularly not in this small town. But and I also told her there could be a lot of financial ramifications. And I mean, everything that you've worked for, I mean, do you really want to put yourself at risk and be wiped out just because you wanted to go to the grocery store? It just doesn't make sense. And I mean, to this day, and she's 91 years old, she will say, I really think that I could still make it. And I'm like, I know you can't make it. And but I- that was it's just such a hard conversation, and it's awful because I mean that's like number one on the bullet point of like I would feel like I lost my independence. Just done. I'm done. I can't do my own thing now. And but I mean, do you guys suggest things like Uber and Lyft and to try to get around?
We do. So as I mentioned, so being here, Northern Virginia, Montgomery County, Maryland, the DC metro area, we are very, very fortunate. And um, what I'm seeing more of as I'm out there and I'm in the community and I'm meeting other people, there has been kind of a new wave of businesses opening, of people who are either offering rides to people to medical appointments, to the grocery store, either free or for a small fee. And as the daughter of someone in the aging community, maybe the person running that business or that service, and you would feel a little bit safer sending your parent uh, or your family member with that service versus putting them in an Uber or a cab. I know with the pandemic, of course, it was a very tough 2 years, but I think we saw some new ways to access resources come out of that. The Instacart and the Peapod and things like that, grocery delivery services. So, we look at when we have to sit down and make that blunt recommendation of it is time for you to retire from driving. What we try very hard not to do is then say, okay, see you later. Thank you for coming by. We want to make sure we want to look at, okay, if you stop driving, how does that impact your life? What is that doing? Where were you driving to before? How can we now look at that and reframe that and find ways for you still to do those purposeful, meaningful activities, but in a new way where you're not maybe driving yourself? Going to church is such a huge one for people. Is there someone else at the church that lives close by that could pick you up every Sunday? we want to make sure that we're offering suggestions or recommendations, because what we don't want to do either is isolate people within their homes. I think everyone had enough of that the past 2 years, and we want to make sure that we're not further isolating and causing further decline more quickly. So yeah, we have really tried to locate those businesses within our community that our clients are coming from, so that we can make a recommendations and say, here, there's a concierge service that I met at a fair at a assisted living community, and she saw kind of the when she was doing Instacart deliveries over COVID and saw how not personal it was, and you just leave the groceries at someone's door. You don't know who's on the other side of the door to bring those groceries in. She now offers her own almost boutique concierge service of grocery retrieval, and she's just located within those assisted living communities and reaching out to those clients, or those residents. So we're trying to find resources like that so that we can give a packet of information at the end and say, while our recommendation is that you retire from driving, here are resources that you can call so that you are not just stuck alone and not able to do those things.
Trista, it sounds like you've got a full service package there, which is amazing. And of course, there are some advantages to not driving anymore, right? No car payment, no insurance, no gasoline. So we're going to explore this topic a little bit further, but we're going to take a break right now, and then we'll come back with more conversation. So stay with us. Thank you.
I tried to ignore it, but my stomach issues were out of control. I couldn't fix them on my own. It was time to do something. A friend said the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation could help me find a specialist. Feels good to finally have a plan. Don't hide your symptoms. Get help at spillyourguts.org today.
Kapayapaan, kapayapaan, kapayapaan.
Diane Floyd Bame's A Song of Peace tells the story of a young lad named Tommy whose fervent wish for peace on earth touches the hearts of his friends and family, spreads to his community, and eventually unites the whole world around making his dream of peace a reality for everyone. Sit down with the children in your life and share Tommy's amazing story of love and hope. Sing your own song of peace and invite the children to join you. Tommy's tale is more than just a story. It's a movement, and everyone's warmly welcome to take part.
Kapayapaan, 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 kapayapaan.
You'll find A Song of Peace, along with many other wonderful learning and enriching opportunities for children of all ages, at dianefloydbame.com.
your vision is less than this, that's a no. If you're hearing, it's a no. Are there any standards like that? Or
So the one real hard standard is vision. As we age, we start to see vision related things like macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts, things like that. Every state does have a minimum vision requirement that you have to meet. They're all about the same, but of course, why would there just be one standard across the board? Every state kind of does their own individually, and so because we live in an area where we're kind of DC, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, we're very close to all those different state lines. We just kind of have people defer back to their own DMV or motor vehicle administration. Um, to discriminate someone just on age gets a little dicey. I will say I've had clients who come in with maybe a diagnosis of an early onset dementia. They could be in their early to mid 60s. And really, the recommendation, even at that time, is to retire from driving. We did an evaluation several years back on a gentleman, I believe, was 90 and still driving in his own community. And I went to his home, met him, drove with him on a couple errands, and honestly, he was a great driver. So it it gets a little dicey when you try to set um, kind of discrimination. I don't want to say the word discrimination, but it's hard to set those parameters. So we have to look at those things that are kind of hard objective data. Vision is one of those. We can do many visual assessments. We can work with ophthalmology, neuro-ophthalmology, and get those. And same thing, that's why we do a lot of our clinical assessments. We use a lot of standardized testing that's available. A lot of occupational therapists use them in other fields as well, to kind of get that score, that baseline to see where people are, because you really just don't know based on age alone how someone is going to perform. And I want to kind of go back. I know Kathy had mentioned something earlier, you know, thinking about everything that they're putting at risk every time they get behind the wheel of a car. We use that talking point a lot when we're coming to these decisions and making our final recommendations. Unfortunately, our society has shifted towards I want to say a sue happy society. And unfortunately, if you find the right lawyer or the right person, they can make certain aspects of someone's, discriminatory. They can make age discriminatory. They can make a medical diagnosis discriminatory and use that against a person, even if it's just a simple fender bender, even if it's a fender bender where the aging person wasn't at fault. They can pull those types of they can pull that information and use that negatively against the person, and we make sure everyone understands those risks as well.
I remember telling my mom that as well. I said, let me remind you, there's already been a doctor recommendation that you no longer drive. So you one slip up, one and I said one little fender bender, and it just I mean, just like you said, that you pretty much take the words right out of your mouth. You get the right attorney on board, and you're done. You really are done. And I mean, to like one thing that I'm wondering is when, say, like I brought my mom to you. Okay. And you didn't know her baseline coexisting conditions. I mean, do you ask for medical records, or do you like what should someone bring? Because say, for example, my mom has neuropathies on her feet. So that right there is a problem. If you can't really feel your feet, how are you going to feel the pedals? You know what I mean? So I was just curious, like what does someone bring when they visit you?
Yeah. So I can kind of walk you through a scenario. Someone calls in and they say, "Hey, we actually had this the other day. A child of someone called in and said, "Hey, I don't know. I think we kind of want to have my dad assessed. He's he's aging. We're not really sure. What all do we need to do? So I explained our process, what our evaluation looks like. We do require a doctor's referral. What we're looking for in that referral is not the doctor's opinion on if the individual can drive or not, because really, given the work that I do, unless the doctor is out there riding in the car with someone, how can they truly say, "Oh, you shouldn't be driving"? Yes, we can look at diagnosis, we can look at the progression of a disease, but I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of doctors that are going out and getting in the car with their patients. Um, and so what we're asking the doctor to say is, are they medically stable to participate in a behind the wheel evaluation? Can they tolerate sitting in a car for 30 to 45 minutes and operating that car? We're looking for medication complications, seizures, things like that. So all we want the doctor to say is they are medically stable to participate in this evaluation, and then we make the final recommendation. So I'm talking with this person on the phone the other day. We're going through everything. They're telling me not a problem. My dad's doctor can certainly get that. They call back a little bit later because now they're ready to move into kind of they talked with their dad, kind of ready to move into the scheduling aspect of it. Well, then I find out there was a letter sent from the DMV. The doctor had already initiated the process. So every state has what is called a medical review process. So medical review in every state looks a little differently, but what that does is that lets the state know that that licensed individual has some type of diagnosis, concern, something that may impact their ability to drive. It's then on the DMV or MVA or state licensing agency to further look into that case. Then they're going to require documentation from the physicians. Typically, they're going to require an evaluation from a certified driver rehab specialist. They're going to require perhaps a further test with the DMV. Perhaps they're going to require them to take that written knowledge test again. So, we're on the phone and, oh, there was a letter sent from the DMV. Well, that tells me the doctor had already initiated that process. And I said, okay. I said, well, does your dad have any medical like an official medical diagnosis, or what is the reason for this? Well, we're getting around all the things, and well, he does have dementia. Well, he also has uncontrolled diabetes. Well, he also has neuropathy. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, this wasn't all disclosed, in that initial phone call. And now I'm seeing that, this is going to be a little bit more complex. So now, we're starting to dig into all this. And well, his license is actually currently suspended. And there's 2 accidents that have happened within the last 5 years. And so you start to, get into all of this, and then we have to really take a step back and say, okay, we're going to require, the medical referral from, and sometimes we do have to say from a specific physician, because sometimes people just go, to their general practitioner and say, hey, sign off on this. But if it's a neurological disorder, we want a neurologist really saying, yes, that, they can participate in that evaluation. And we're going to want further documentation if they're currently participating in any types of therapies, physical therapy, occupational therapy. We want to know that. We ask for that release of information to send us those records, because we want to know, what they're doing, because it's amazing what people don't reveal, because they think if I don't tell them, they won't find out, and then I can keep driving. And unfortunately, those behaviors and patterns and everything, they come out on the evaluation. So we can't really sneak anything by us.
That's really eye-opening. I have a question. Family members, friends, over the years, I know they've had a diagnosis of something and they have to take medication, and right on the pill bottle, do not drive while taking this medication, but they're not driving anyway. So how does that come into play with your assessments?
Yeah, so that asking medication history can be a little dicey. We allow people to disclose to us what they want to, but it's you learn over the years, and as you grow, even as a therapist, you listen for those subtle, people disclose things that they don't realize that they're disclosing, and so we're taking notes, and we're taking everything into consideration. We do know a lot of the major medications that can impact someone's ability to drive, and we're keeping an eye out for that. And that's why we like to have that doctor's referral too, because typically the physician is going to know, if there are medications that they're on or anything that they're currently prescribing that could impact that. Um, but it doesn't, and we joke it's the magic car. It's amazing when you're in the car with someone for half hour, 45 minutes to an hour, everything that you can learn about someone. It's just crazy what people will disclose to you and you're just driving down the road.
Right. That's why my mom used to get me in the car when I was a teenager and and talk me through whatever issue we were going through because she knew I
Hmm.
couldn't get away from her.
Right.
Well, I think that this is awesome. I mean, it's so great to have like a third party, not to necessarily blame it on, but just to be able to say, look, they're the experts. And because in my home care agency practice, I mean, there have been so many knockdown dragouts over, I mean, because there's so many. Every child wants to be the decision maker, right? The chief, and expects everybody else to be the Indians, and it just never works. I mean, 99.9% of the time, everyone is not going to agree in the family regarding should mom or dad continue to drive, right? And so I just think that this is wonderful. I mean, my mom has some cognitive issues, and I'm always amazed at the things that she remembers. And if I had been the decision maker and said, "Give me the keys, we're selling the car," she would remember that because I'm telling you, she still tells a story and she's bitter. She's bitter about it.
Yeah,
I
it's
understand.
like it can get, like I said, it's not fun. I don't want to say that it's fun, but I think that we have all gotten comfortable in our skills and our ability to assess to really say, this is our best recommendation. Here is this objective data. We can show those scores. We can show what happened. Our therapist was out recently with a client, and the therapist had to reach over and take over the wheel. And later on, when they were sitting down going over everything, the therapist is like, I had to reach over. You were about to hit a truck that was parked on the side of the road. And the client said, well, hitting it and almost hitting it are totally different. So you overreacted. Um, this is the same client that, said that the therapist asking her to do the gas and the brake and the steering all at the same time was just too much, and that their driving styles were different. So, um, we've while we can sit back and kind of laugh about that later, it was very difficult, and that person was adamant that they were going to continue driving. And then we do have to really say we have to pull those results of those assessments and really confront them and say, no, here's all the areas of deficit, and those add up to, you really need to consider retiring from driving. And typically in those cases, then we will, if the DMV is not already involved, go ahead and make that referral to the DMV so that they are aware, and do everything the correct way to retire and turn in the license. Because we are good stewards of, and we want to make sure that we're protecting not only ourselves but the general public.
Have you ever felt that you were at risk or in jeopardy when you were in a vehicle with someone?
I've had a few situations, but it's interesting when I before I started actually doing driving rehab, and when I knew what driving rehab was, I'm like, that is crazy. They're out there just flying down the highway. In occupational therapy, we call it activity analysis or grading an activity. So we look at driving as an activity. We're not going to start on a major four-lane highway in rush hour. We're going to start in a closed parking lot. We're going to start at a shopping center with, little traffic, maybe on a Tuesday morning when no one's there. We're going to start in those less busy environments. And if it's someone that we're seeing over the course of several times and we want them to progress, then we're going to progress that activity as they master the skill, as they master the skill of just right turns. Maybe then the next session we're going to add in unprotected left hand turns. So um, I didn't realize it until I was doing it that you can better control the environment to not put yourselves in those situations. Now, I'm not going to say that I haven't had to use my I have a passenger side emergency brake. I've had to use it a few times. But you really can control that environment of where someone is driving and minimize those risks. Of course, there's always a risk. I can't say that there's not. We had an incident where one of our clients was driving and took out a mailbox, and then we had to, resolve that issue. But you can control that environment and not put yourself in the crazy risky situations.
My gosh, that's good to know. Thank you. Kathy, last question or comment over to you.
Well, I was my question was going to be, I mean, like, you have someone and they're clearly not passing the test, and I was glad to know that you do basically get DMV involved and get them to, we need to get this person off the road, because that is, I was just fearful that if someone did not accept your recommendation, they were like, okay, well, I'm going to continue to drive. So I think that that's great, because it's frightening. I cannot imagine my mom on the road anymore. I mean, even several years later, it just would not have been good. So that's great, and I'm sure a lot of families will take great comfort, because it's kind of like their way out as well from being that bad decision maker.
Yeah. And something I just want to mention, so I know that this streams, in a lot of places. So we are fortunate that we have such a robust group here in the Northern Virginia area, but there are certified driver rehab specialists all across the country and in Canada and overseas. And we all belong to the organization ADED, ADED. It's the Association for Driver Rehabilitation. I know the acronym doesn't meet the name, but anyone out there can get on aded.net and look for a driver rehab specialist in their local area. Of course, in the more rural areas, it may be a bit of a drive, but also check, local hospitals within their OT department may have someone who can at least do that clinical assessment. We work with a lot of our hospitals here locally within their OT departments. If it's something that the occupational therapists are already doing in that scope of rehab, then we don't always need to necessarily redo it, and we'll work with their assessments as well. So, if you think, oh, this might not be available in my area, it likely is, and just use that tool to find someone in your area.
Thank you so much. Final question I just came to my mind. I have a friend who has an elderly parent. They took the driver's license away, and then the person stole the keys to the car and drove the car to Walmart. Everyone loves Walmart. My question is, in that scenario, knowing that they don't have a license and they're not allowed to drive, but they took the keys anyway, is that something where they could be arrested?
It is, yes. I mean, they're now driving under a suspended license, and that's violating a codified law. So, yeah, and we've had those situations too, where we've had family members tell us, well, they're taken off in the middle of the night. The it's dicey. It's a difficult scenario. We've had people have to hide car keys or park the car in a different area, or down the street. But yes, that is illegal. You can get the police involved. Unfortunately, you hate to go to that measure, but yeah, at that point, they are breaking the law.
Thank you, Trista. Can you please share your contact information for people who are unable to read the banner or they're listening on the radio? How can people
Yes,
contact you? Who would you like to reach
yeah.
out?
So if you go through Google, our website is driverrehabcenter.com, and we are the Driver Rehabilitation Center of Excellence. And my email is twindows, twindows, at driverrehabcenter.com, or they can reach us at info@driverrehabcenter.com, info at driverrehabcenter.com.
Thank you very much. It's been a
Of
pleasure to
course.
meet you. Kathy?
Yeah, no, this is such great information. Thank you so much for coming on the show, because um like I said, I did not know that you guys were out there. And so now I can refer a lot of my clients to you, just so they can be taken out, not to make you guys the bad guy, but it just, you have other alternatives and can get the DMV involved. And so I think it's wonderful.
Right. And
This is such great information.
yeah, and thank you, Kathy. Glad we were able to meet in the context that we were. Yeah, what we really first and foremost always want to do is just educate people so that they know that this is out there. Of course, we are a business and we love to see clients and keep our business growing, but first and foremost, we always just want to educate so that people know that this is a resource that they can turn to in their community to help out with their loved one.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you again. We look forward to having you back on this or any of our other shows.
Yeah, thank you both. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye for now.
Thank you. I'll be
Bye.
in touch.
All right, thank you.
Kathy, I'd love for you to share your contact information and what's happening for the rest of this morning.
Well, if you need home care assistance, I can be reached at 703-402-1172. Or if you'd like to email me, I'm at kathyfulton1965@gmail.com. If you'd like to check out our website, we can be found at stayathomecareva.com. And so, our goal is just really to help the elderly age in place. So that's it for this show. But then after this, we have What's Trending, and we have a mother-daughter team that's going to talk about the book that they've written, and it's all about, I believe, instilling values in children. So excited to interview them.
And then after that?
Well, then after that, I have a talking head show, and I'm going to be showing you the different ways to make your backyard a staycation. So I have about maybe 25 to 30 ideas how to make your home kind of resort-ish. So stay tuned.
That's very exciting. Your talking head shows are always excellent. You've got great visuals for us to follow. So I'm excited for that. And for the next show, the guests who are coming on today, one of them was on last week and signed up for their service. So I'm excited to hear this interview as well.
Yeah. And do I have time to plug their service? Okay. So Sharon Brown, she is a representative for Legal Shield. And I had an issue that this is initially how she and I got involved together or connected, an issue with my bank. And I won't name names, but anyway, long story short, over $3,000 was stolen out of my bank account. Anyway, long story short, they dug their heels in and they were not going to give me my money back, even though I'd had a banking relationship with them since 2010, had kept all of my money in their bank for all those years. And so anyway, I connected with Sharon Brown, and she got me signed up. I had one of their attorneys write a letter to the bank, and I figured, they've been so hateful and so arrogant, they're probably not going to budge. I came home Tuesday morning to a FedEx package after I'd been at a meeting, and there was a cashier's check for all the money that had been stolen. I almost dropped over dead. So they do a good job. I was very impressed.
Wow, Kathy, that's amazing. So was this Legal Shield and Identity Shield as well, or just Legal Shield?
It was just a Legal Shield. So that's been my point of reference with Sharon thus far. So I hope I don't have any more problems. I mean, I think Legal Shield is a great entity. I don't want any more problems. I got enough.
Well, thank you for being so authentic and genuine, letting people know there are entities out there, people out there who can help us when it seems like we've hit a brick wall because other people are not bending. So it's good to know Legal Shield helps you.
Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is what I wasn't going to spend $2,000 to try to recoup $3,000. And that's probably in Northern Virginia, that's probably what it would have cost me in order to go after this bank. And Legal Shield they have a variety of different plans, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And I mean, the plan that was right for me was $50 a month. So to get this resolved cost me $100. Well worth it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was just insane. I mean, you go to your bank account and someone has taken a vacation on your money. I mean, how does this happen? And they try to walk away and go, it's not on us. Well, really? Because I entrusted you to protect my money. So yeah, it is your problem. You just don't get to walk away. So anyway,
Yeah,
started getting
otherwise
ramped up. That's all.
you could have put it under a mattress or something. So
It would have been safer. So
exactly.
anyway, so I highly it's a good plan to have in place.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing. And we need to wrap up this show because our next one's coming right up. So, everybody,
So
please do stay wherever you are watching or listening. We'll be right back with what's trending in just a few moments. And thank you again, Trista. Bye for now.
thanks, Trista. Bye.